A nuclear-armed submarine just surfaced in the Mediterranean, and Iran's entire military leadership went underground the same day. On May 11th, something unusual happened. While diplomats were still talking in Geneva, the USS Alaska, an Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine, pulled into Gibraltar, in full view, with civilian cameras rolling. This wasn't an accident, because the same day this submarine arrived, President Trump called Iran's negotiation proposal totally unacceptable. The diplomatic table collapsed, and instead of issuing a statement, the U.S. parked 20 nuclear-capable Trident missiles at the mouth of the Mediterranean. But here's what makes this different from every other military move you've seen. This is called silent deterrence. You don't tell your opponent what you'll do. You show them what you can do, and you let their imagination fill in the rest. And it's working. Iran's Revolutionary Guard pulled its top commanders into underground bunkers. They activated coastal air defenses. They deployed mini-submarines in the Strait of Hormuz and put them on standby to fire. Not because the U.S. attacked, but because of what could happen next. Let's talk about what's actually in the region right now, because the numbers are staggering. According to Stars and Stripes, 41% of the entire U.S. Navy is currently positioned in or around the Strait of Hormuz. That's more than 27 warships, 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, over 10 destroyers, 2 marine amphibious assault ships, 3 littoral combat ships, and now 1 ballistic missile submarine. That's over 16,000 sailors and Marines in a single theater. To put that in perspective, this is one of the largest concentrated naval deployments the U.S. has staged in a single region since the early 2000s. Now here's where it gets more intense. The USS Abraham Lincoln is operating in the Arabian Sea with F-35Cs on its deck, the Navy's most advanced stealth fighter. The USS George H.W. Bush just arrived with 25 FA-18 Super Hornets, 2 aircraft carriers, same waters, same week. That hasn't happened since this conflict began. And it's not just the U.S. France's aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle passed through the Suez Canal and is moving toward the Gulf. Britain is sending a destroyer. Multinational defense ministers are meeting this Tuesday to discuss plans to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. But none of these forces have fired a shot yet. So how is Iran responding? Rear Admiral Shahram Irani, commander of Iran's naval forces, announced that domestically produced light submarines, called Persian Gulf Dolphins, have been deployed on high alert in the Strait of Hormuz. According to Iranian media, these subs can sit motionless on the seabed, monitor enemy vessels' undetected fire torpedoes if necessary. On paper, that sounds like a serious threat. But here's the reality. Comparing Iran's mini-submarine fleet to an Ohio-class ballistic missile sub is like comparing a speedboat to a destroyer. The technology gap is enormous. The firepower gap is even bigger. And yet, Iran is still landing hits. On March 16th, Saudi Arabia said it intercepted 60 Iranian drones. A fuel depot near Dubai was struck. Qatar reported 2 waves of missile attacks. A maritime drone hit a tanker 800 kilometers from the strait. The conflict is spreading geographically. There are also unconfirmed reports that 3 Kuwaiti Typhoon fighter jets were destroyed at Ali Al Salem Air Base. And according to open-source analysts, 5 U.S. KC-135 tanker aircraft were damaged at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. Now this is critical, because tankers are the backbone of U.S. air operations. Without aerial refueling, fighter jets can't reach Iran from distant bases. Sortie rates drop. Mission range shrinks. The entire air campaign slows down. And that's exactly what Iran is trying to do, disrupt the U.S. logistics chain. While the world watches submarines and destroyers, the real story is happening in the air. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers are being reloaded at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Each one can carry 2 GBU-57 bunker busters, the largest conventional bomb in the U.S. arsenal. These bombs were designed for one purpose: to penetrate Iran's deep underground nuclear facilities and missile production sites. They can punch through 60 meters of reinforced concrete. And stockpiles are running low. The U.S. Air Force just awarded Boeing a $62.5 million emergency contract to produce more. But here's what that tells us. The U.S. isn't planning a short operation. It's preparing for sustained strikes over weeks, possibly months. B-1B Lancers are being loaded with GBU-72s, a new 5,000-pound bunker buster that's never been used in combat. According to earlier reports, these bombs collapsed several of Iran's coastal missile tunnels. And then there's this shift, and it's huge. According to the Hudson Institute, the U.S. has moved away from expensive Tomahawk cruise missiles and is now using cheaper JDAM guided bombs. What does that mean? It means Iran's air defenses have degraded so much that U.S. aircraft no longer need to fire from long range. They can fly closer and drop precision bombs that cost a fraction of the price. At the start of the conflict, one Tomahawk cost about $2 million. A JDAM costs around $25,000. That's a 99% cost reduction per strike, which dramatically increases how long the U.S. can sustain this campaign. But despite all this firepower, the U.S. faces a serious challenge: Iran's missile cities. These are massive tunnel networks carved hundreds of meters into granite mountains. Mobile missile launchers move along underground rail systems. They roll out, fire, and disappear back inside within minutes. Some of these facilities are buried 200 to 300 meters deep, far beyond the reach of even the GBU-57. According to Bloomberg, despite a week of intense bombardment, there's been no significant decrease in the number of active Iranian ballistic missile launchers. Let me repeat that. Iran is still launching missiles. Analysts from Hezbollah-affiliated media claim missile volume has dropped by 90%. But Gulf nations are still intercepting drones and missiles daily. So which is it? The truth is likely somewhere in the middle. Iran's ability to mass launch has been hit hard, but isolated strikes, especially from mobile and underground platforms, continue. And this brings us to the real question. Let's be clear about something. The U.S. has overwhelming conventional military superiority, no question. But this war isn't just about firepower. It's about geography, time, and cost. Here's what's working against the U.S. 1. Isolation. Japan, Australia, the UK, and France all refused to join the Hormuz coalition. Spain closed the Rota naval base to U.S. operations. NATO publicly stated, "This is not our war." The U.S. is largely operating alone, with limited support from Israel, Saudi Arabia, and a few Gulf states. 2. The Pacific Gap. Having 41% of the Navy in the Middle East means the Pacific is wide open. If China were to move on Taiwan right now, the U.S. would face a two-front crisis it's not prepared for. This is the Pentagon's nightmare scenario. 3. Crew exhaustion. The USS Gerald Ford has been deployed for 11 months, the longest carrier deployment since Vietnam. Sailors are exhausted. When the Bush takes over, there will be a transition gap where capacity temporarily drops. 4. Ammunition depth. GBU-57 stockpiles are limited. The B-2 fleet is small. Tomahawks aren't unlimited. Even with cheaper JDAMs, the U.S. can't sustain this indefinitely without resupply. 5. Iran's geography. Finding mobile missile launchers across 1.6 million square kilometers of mountainous terrain is nearly impossible. The U.S. can destroy fixed infrastructure, but hunting hidden mobile targets is exponentially harder. So where is this heading? There are 3 possible scenarios. Scenario 1. Sustained attrition. The U.S. continues airstrikes for another 3 to 6 weeks, degrading Iran's ability to rebuild. No ground invasion, just relentless pressure until Iran's production capacity collapses. Israel has publicly said this will take at least 3 more weeks. Trump said it will end soon. Iran says it will defend as long as necessary. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Scenario 2. Limited ground operation. The arrival of a Marine Expeditionary Unit, MEU, in the region has raised speculation about a targeted ground move. One possibility, Karg Island. This is where 90% of Iran's oil exports flow through. It's isolated. Its defenses have been heavily damaged. A small amphibious force could seize it in a surgical operation, cutting off Iran's primary revenue source without a full-scale invasion. It's not an occupation, it's economic strangulation. Scenario 3. Negotiated de-escalation. If international pressure mounts, or if oil prices spike too high, both sides could agree to a temporary ceasefire while backdoor negotiations continue. But right now, neither side is blinking. This isn't just a regional conflict. The Strait of Hormuz handles 21% of global oil traffic. If it stays closed, oil prices will spike. Shipping costs will soar. Inflation will return to Europe and Asia. Supply chains that are still recovering from COVID will take another hit. Gulf states are already feeling it. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE have restricted airspace access out of fear of Iranian retaliation. That complicates logistics for everyone, including commercial airlines. Energy markets are watching every headline. A single miscalculation, one stray missile hitting a major oil terminal, could send Brent crude past $100 a barrel. And that would hurt the global economy far more than any military strike. Here's the bottom line. The U.S. has the power to destroy Iran's conventional military. It's proven that. But it can't eliminate Iran's geography, its underground networks, or its asymmetric tactics. Wars aren't won by weapons alone. They're won by time, resolve, and cost. Iraq proved that. Afghanistan proved that. Iran is the next test. The question isn't who has more firepower. The question is, who's willing to pay the highest price? Right now, both sides are still betting they can outlast the other. History is watching. And so far, neither side is blinking. What do you think happens next? Drop your analysis in the comments. And if you want in-depth geopolitical breakdowns like this every week, subscribe and turn on notifications. We don't just report the news. We explain what it actually means.